Welcome to Rachel Wolf Movement. Balance your body through holistic movement. Let's get started. Today we have a level 1 30-minute stability workout. This workout is all about creating a strong, stable core, which will help with balance and control. The only props you'll need for today might be a sturdy box or some yoga blocks. Before we get started with our stability workout, we'll start with a little bit of mobility just to warm up the spine. So you're going to start on your hands and knees. Now, like I said, if you need the blocks or the box, that'll be because you need a modification for hands and knees. We're going to be doing a lot of hands and knees today. So taking the blocks and placing your hands on them will take some pressure off of your hands. Or if you have serious wrist injuries or you can't weight bear through your wrist, you can always grab some type of box that's a little bit taller, and then you can get onto your elbows and still keep your back pretty straight. We'll start on hands and knees. Micro bend your elbows so you're not locking them out. We're just going to start by shifting weight forwards and backwards. We just want to stretch out the wrist to begin because we're going to be spending a lot of time on our wrist today. So if you need to take breaks and get off of your wrist, feel free to use the yoga blocks or the box. And now you're going to shift weight back toward your heels and flip your wrist so the fingertips are pointing towards the knees and you're on the back of the hands, and you're just going to do little shifts forwards and backwards. Be careful with your wrist. You don't want a ton of pressure here. We're just trying to work them out a little bit. And then you can take a seat on your heels or sit cross-legged just to take a moment to roll out your wrist. And then we'll come back to hands and knees. So shoulders right over the wrist again, knees underneath the hips. Exhale, round your back, cat's back. Inhale, drop your belly, open your chest. Allow your neck to follow the spine. Exhale, round. Inhale, open the chest. Pull the shoulder blades apart as you exhale. Drop the chest, bring the shoulder blades together. Try to keep the shoulders pulled out of the ears as you're moving your spine. Good, and we'll finish one more round. And then you'll come back to center. Okay, so now we're going into tail wag. You're bringing your right ear and your right hip together and your left ear and left hip together, moving your spine side to side. So in our cat and cow, we're moving the spine forwards and backwards. In our tail wag, we're moving the spine side to side. And we'll finish one more on each side, coming back to center. Now you're going to take your right leg and just hover the knee off of the mat. Start to take it out to the side, and then you're going to circle it around and up and lower it down. And you're trying to take your leg out as far as you can without going into a cat or cow or a tail wag. So we're already beginning our stability workout by eliminating that cat and cow movement and that tail wag. We're keeping our spine stable, so we're not letting it move to the extreme movements. And then we reverse. Those movements are great when we're focusing on mobility, but for stability, we want to try to keep the core completely still and move the intended joint, which in this case is our hip, and where our femur attaches at the hip. Now we'll switch sides. Taking the knee out to the side, start to draw it up and down. So we're working on the stability of the opposite hip. So in this case, it's my right hip. Not letting that hip move. And then we'll reverse. Now I could make my circles really big, but notice how I drop my belly. I'm back in my cow tilt. And then if I really focus on pulling the knee up, I go into my cat's back. So we're just making the movement as big as we can without a lot of movement through the spine. And then one more, and you can lower that knee down. Take a little child's pose rest just to get off of your wrists for a second. You can circle them around, stretch them out. And we'll come back onto the hands and knees. Stacking the shoulders over the wrist again, knees underneath the hips, micro bend into the elbows. So we're going to start by extending the right leg straight back and then let the knee come in. Now, as we're moving the leg back, what you want to focus on is that your opposite hip, in this case it's my left hip, does not push out to the side. So we take the leg back and bring it in. Also, no cat and cow movement. So I'm not letting my belly drop. I'm not letting my shoulders creep up into my ears. I'm trying to keep everything still. And one more. And then we'll switch to the other side. So keeping my right hip completely still. Pull the belly button in towards the spine and slightly up towards the ribs to help keep your pelvis level. Good, 2 more. And last one. Okay, now we're going to work with the arms. Extending one arm, lower it down, and then the other arm. So we want to make sure we're not going into that tail wag, we're not letting the hip hike up or the ribs drop to the pelvis. We're keeping the waist long. Keeping both sides long, the ribs pulled away from the pelvis. Try to lift your arm up as high as you can without going into that cow tilt. You're not letting the ribs drop. You're keeping those ribs slightly pulled in. Okay, now we're going to put it together. So opposite arm, opposite leg. As you start to extend your right leg back, you're going to reach your left arm forwards. So in order to make this really stable and not let my hips push out to the side, I need to weight into my right hand and left knee evenly. Then lower down, extending the right arm, left leg back. Feel this diagonal weight from the left hand to the right knee. We're keeping our core active by drawing the belly button slightly up and in, not letting the pelvis shift to either side. So we're keeping the hips even the whole time, not letting one hip lift up higher than the other. So no rotation through the spine or the pelvis. Make sure you're still breathing. Deep inhale, breath. Exhale, extend. And you can come down, take another child's pose to get off of your wrist. Okay, now we're going to come up and take the mat to the wall. Now, you want your mat against the wall because we're gonna work with what it feels like to keep our hip completely stable. So you want your hip touching the wall, and then you're going to get your shoulder against the wall too. You want to make sure you're pretty close to the wall so you're not leaning into it, but you're in your quadruped position, hands and knees, but you're able to use the wall to help you. So our first exercise, we're going to take the leg straight back, and you're going to lift and lower that leg without moving the hip. So I'm only lifting the leg up as high as I can without letting my belly drop, without arching my back, and I'm not able to push my hip out to the side because the wall is there. So we lift and lower, keeping the core engaged the whole time. So pulling up and in on the lower abdomen. Now you're going to hold this leg up, bend the knee, and little kicks up, up. You're not gonna be able to go too high on this because we're keeping the core pulled in. Now lower down, take the knee out to the side and bring it in. Make sure both of your elbows look the same. You're not bending one more than the other. Inhale to come in, exhale, bring it out. Two more. And last one. Ooh, these are really hard when you can't cheat. I'm already sweating. So now we're going to turn it to the other side. I've got my hip touching the wall, my shoulders touching the wall. And I'm gonna scoot forward so I don't kick the wall. Okay, so now you're going to extend the leg straight back behind you. Pull the low abs in and up. We start to lift and lower. We're keeping the core pulled in. Exhale to lift, inhale to lower. Now hold that leg up, bend the knee. Little kicks, up, up, up. Make sure you're not using momentum. We're not swinging the leg like this, not arching my back. I'm keeping my core pulled in. That's what makes the movement small, is because I'm holding everything in my center completely still. Now lower that leg down, start to draw the knee out and back in. Breathing. Exhale out. Inhale, return. Keeping your elbows the same, so not letting this side bend, so I kick the side higher. We're keeping the pelvis level. Elbows stay the same, hips stay the same. I'm just taking one knee out to the side. Two more. And last one, and you can bring it in. Take a child's pose rest to get your break in and breathe. Deep breaths. All right, so we're going to come up, and now you'll lie down onto your back. Okay. So we're going to start in this position that is tabletop, and this whole exercise series on your back is called dead bug. So the arms lift up. We're just going to take the right arm back behind, exhale, come back to center. Now what I'm focusing on here is a neutral pelvic position. So my back ribs stay anchored onto the mat. I'm not arching my lower back, and I'm not firmly pressing it in so hard that my knees are here and my butt's coming up. So I want to hold tabletop and just let my arm go back. Now, if my back starts to arch as I take my arm back, I'm not going to take my arm that far, so I might stop somewhere about there, and then you'll switch to the other side. So you're keeping your back ribs down the whole time. Exhale, bring it in. Inhale to extend. Now take both arms back. Don't let your ribs pop out. If my ribs are popping out, I'm arching my back. So that's a good indicator as to what's happening. Keep the ribs down. Back ribs here are pressed into the floor. Both arms go overhead. Exhale, come back to center. Think about your belly button pulling up and in as you bring the arms up. Now both arms reach up to the ceiling. We're just going to lower the right toes down to the floor and lift. Lower down and lift. You don't even have to go as low as me. You're just going as low as you can maintain a neutral pelvis. So your back ribs aren't coming off. You're not arching your back. Exhale, come up. Inhale, lower. One more. Other side. Now we're not swinging the leg up, so I want you to ground down into the pelvis as you lift and lower. So I'm pushing my left hip down into the floor as I lower the leg and as I lift. By doing that action, you're really going to engage your lower abs. And it's helping you to keep neutral. Keeping neutral is the biggest part of stability. Now we're going to see how low can you take both legs? Exhale, lift. How low can you take the legs? Holding neutral, grounding your hips down into the floor as you lift and lower. No swinging, no momentum. Back ribs stay down. Inhale, lower, exhale, lift. Inhale, lower, exhale, lift. 3 more. 2. And 1. And now we're going to do opposite arm, opposite leg. My right arm goes back as my left toes start to lower to the floor. Exhale, come up. So we're holding neutral in our pelvis, which means we're not shifting all of our weight to one side. So make sure you keep equal weight in both sides of the hips and equal weight in the shoulder blades. So there's a lot to think about here. Back ribs stay down. Belly button zips up towards the rib cage. Inhale to extend. Exhale, lift. And 1 more on each side. And you can hug the knees into the chest. Take a little rock side to side. And you can make your way up to seated. So now we're going to take our mat up against the wall. Mine's already there, so I'll give you a minute to get yours up against the wall. And then you're going to lie down onto your back. And you're going to bring your feet onto the wall. Now, if this doesn't feel good in your body, feel free to keep your feet on the floor. If this feels too challenging, just keep your feet on the floor and do the exact same. So hands are down by the hips, knees are right over the pelvis, shins are parallel to the floor. Exhale, we're going to pull the feet down the wall without actually moving them, but we're imagining we could drag the feet down the wall. Exhale, start to curl your hips up, 1 vertebra at a time. Keep the ribs down. If my ribs are popping out here, my back is arching, my neck is not in alignment, so you don't need to go that high. You want to find alignment, shoulder, hip, knee alignment. So keep that tuck and roll down bone by bone. Exhale, we curl up, lift. Inhale, articulate down. By tractioning down on the heels, we activate more glutes and hamstrings. Exhale, curl up. Inhale, roll down. Now hold it up here. You're going to bring your right leg in tabletop, lower the foot back to the wall. And then left leg tabletop, bring the foot back to the wall. So as I'm doing this, my hip bones stay even. Make sure that you're not letting your hip pop out. You're not letting one hip drop lower than the other. The hips stay completely even as you switch from side to side. So as I take my right leg in tabletop, I have to keep my left glute engaged. This is the one that's working harder. And then switch. So this is stability, keeping the hips even, not letting one hip drop, rotate, or scrunch up in my obliques. So that's another compensatory strategy. We're keeping everything nice and even. Now you're going to bring your right leg in tabletop, rotate it out and in. Now, as I turn the leg out, it gets harder for my left hip to hold me. Don't let this hip push out to the side. If I take my leg too far, my left hip's gonna push out. So you wanna keep it pulled in and only move the right knee out as far as you can keep the left hip still. 2 more. Last one, return it to the wall. Left leg tabletop, start to turn it out, back to center. Your right hip doesn't move. And 1 more, and you can roll down. Hug the knees into the chest. If you felt anything in your lower back on that, just keep your feet on the floor. Don't lift your hips as high, and that'll help to protect your lower back. So now we're going to come up to seated. Come onto your hands and knees. Stack your shoulders over your wrist. You can always be on your forearms using the blocks or the box if you chose that option. Tuck your toes under. Now you're just going to hover your knees off of the mat. We hold, hover, and tap down. So in this movement, we're using our lower abs to pick our knees up. Exhale, lift, hover, hold. Inhale, lower. Good. Exhale, lift, hover, hold. Inhale, lower. Make sure you're not collapsing your shoulders and you're not rounding your back too much. We want more of a flat back. So we lift, hover, hold, and drop. Keep a micro bend in your elbows. Also, we want to note turning your elbow creases to face forwards. So these inner creases of your elbows, you want to rotate them forwards. So we're creating more of an external rotation on our shoulder heads. It just helps to put your shoulders in a better position to weight bear. So we lift up again, hover, hold, exhale, inhale, lower. Exhale, lift, hover, hold, inhale, lower. Exhale, lift, hover, hold, inhale, lower. 3 more. Last 2, exhale, lift, hover, hold, and 1 more. And we lower down. Okay, now you're going to have a seat with your knees bent. Hands are here. I'm turning my fingers to face towards my wrist. So this is the movement we're doing. You're lifting your hips up and then you're going to lower your hips down. So if this hurts your wrist, you have a couple options. You can turn your fingers out. This will take some pressure off your wrist. You can always grab your box and take your elbows onto the box and lift. If you don't have a box, you can do it on the floor like I'm doing. It's just a lot harder to lift your hips up when you're that low. So the box will help you. You can also use the edge of a sofa. So placing your shoulders right over your wrist, your feet are flat on the ground about hips distance apart. Exhale, we push into the feet and hands, squeeze the glutes, lift the hips up. You're looking up at the ceiling, push your chest up. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift, really push your chest up nice and high. Keep the shoulders out of the ears and lower. Exhale, lift, 2 more. Inhale, lower. And last one, and you can come on down. You guys did such a great job today. We're just going to stretch to finish off. You are almost done. So you're going to lie down onto your back. You'll cross your right ankle over your left thigh. Pick your left foot off of the floor. Reach your right arm in between the legs. Interlace the fingers behind your left thigh. You can use your right elbow to push the right thigh away for added stretch. If this is too intense, just keep the foot on the floor. Use your right hand to push the right thigh away. Deep breaths as you hold this stretch. Inhale and exhale. Inhale Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Now extend your left leg up as straight as you can, flexing the foot. If this doesn't work in your body, just leave that right foot on the floor and do it this way, or you can use a belt or a strap, loop it around your left foot and hold it in place. Now bend your left knee. You're going to cross the right thigh all the way over to the left. Take your elbows out into goalpost arms. Let your left foot come back to the floor. And you're going to take your knees over to the left. Turn and look at your right hand. And turn your head back to center, knees back to center. We'll cross the left ankle over the right thigh. Pull the right leg in, using that left elbow to the left thigh. Take any modifications you need by lowering that right foot to the floor and just pressing the left thigh away. You can extend that right leg up, flexing the foot to stretch, or take your left foot to the floor if you need. And you can bend your right knee, cross the left thigh over the right. Goalpost arms as you drop your knees to the right. Turn and look at your left hand. And come back to center. And then we'll come up to seated. You can sit on your heels. If you have yoga blocks, you could put them in between your feet and sit on them instead, or sit cross-legged if this is uncomfortable for you. Take your right arm out to the right side, reach the left arm up and overhead, getting a nice side bend stretch. Relax your right shoulder away from your ear. And we come up to center, left hand to the floor, right arm reaches up and overhead, relaxing that left shoulder down. And you can lift up, and you guys are done for today. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to rest, and we will see you next time.